39.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Tyler McComas and Parker Thune.
It is Locked In. Here on it, what day is today? It's the day after OU got John Mateer. I don't know what day of the week it is, Grayson Singleton. Thursday, there you go. I landed on it. Locked In on a Thursday here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Parker Thune alongside Grayson Singleton. Tyler McComas is once again out today, taking an early Christmas vacation. Wish that were me, but here I am. What we do get to talk about on this day is, of course, Oklahoma's acquisition of John Mateer. Where were you when the news broke last night, Grayson?
I was curled over my toilet because I had an allergic reaction to something that I ate.
I'm sorry, what now?
Oh, last night was a rough one for me.
And you're feeling okay now, to be clear.
I am feeling great. I'm feeling 90% great, but I did take an unforeseen nap, woke up and scrolled through Twitter, and John Mateer was the first thing that I saw.
So you said you were curled over your toilet over an allergic reaction?
Yeah, I just ate something, then I had like this crazy heartburn. I was trying to like cough up a bunch of it's a long story that lasted well into like 1:30 this morning.
Sheesh, so you're running on barely any sleep as well.
I'm running on about 5 hours of sleep.
Respect. You only had to do 3 hours of radio, though, today, as opposed to 6.
There was no way in hell I could do 6 hours today.
Tattoo Baker says, I was at Norman Hideaway Pizza. That's one of those things. That you'll always remember where you were at. There have been a few of those instances over the years. We can remember exactly where you were when this happened or that happened. If you're an OU football fan, if you're somebody like me who covers OU football, they're landmark moments. The addition of John Mateer is a landmark moment for this institution. I can still recall being in my studio apartment over at what's that apartment complex called now? The Ave at Norman, over off of Highway 9, 2713. Sitting at my I guess it wasn't even a table. It was an island. It was like a kitchen island that was a bar as well. So just sitting there when I got the notification that Lincoln Riley was departing Oklahoma for USC. Last night I was on Highway 9 driving home because John Mateer decided to announce that he was signing with Oklahoma basically immediately after we got off air. Teddy and I did the rush. We sat around for 3 hours. Waited for the Mateer news, waited and waited and waited. There was no Mateer news. Now, there was news. Oklahoma got Keontez Lewis, the Southern Illinois wide receiver transfer. But the biggest news of the day, the news that we've been waiting on for days, for weeks even, did not break until right after we were off the air. That was the only annoying aspect of it yesterday. John Mateer is a Sooner, as expected, and no doubt all of you have opinions. You have questions, and you're already filling up the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439. This is Locked In. This is generally a recruiting hour. However, this time of the year, we're not talking very much recruiting. Well, in a sense, we are. We're talking transfer portal because that is what's hot right now. That is what's happening. And with John Mateer on board, you would fully expect that Oklahoma is going to start racking them up in the transfer portal. 6 total additions so far. Let's run them down. You have punter Jacob Ulrich, who was the first. You have Mateer, the quarterback. You have a couple of offensive linemen in Luke Baklenko, formerly of Stanford, and the most recent addition, Derek Simmons, formerly of Western Carolina, who committed this morning, and the receiver duo for the moment, which ought to become a receiver trio by the time I am off air today. Keontez Lewis and Giovanni Gibson both committed yesterday as well. Lewis comes to Oklahoma after previous stops at UCLA, Wisconsin, and Southern Illinois. Giovanni Gibson comes to Oklahoma after previous stops at the University of Arkansas Monticello and Arkansas Pine Bluff. So where were you? Gunny let us know. He said, I was cutting and slinging quarter-inch metal at 4:20 West Coast time. That's what it was, wasn't it? Yeah, it's 4:20 somewhere. That's how Gunny thinks. It was right about 6:20 last night that the Mateer news went public. Question on the text line from Drew in Flower Mound. Where was Parker Thune when Jeremiah Fears hit the 4-point play? Yeah, as if yesterday wasn't triumphant enough for this fan base and for everyone associated with OU athletics. Then Jeremiah Fears, sensation that he is, sinks number 24 Michigan with a game-winning 4-point play in the final seconds to vault OU to a 1-point victory over the Wolverines in the Jumpman Invitational. That kid's something else, Grayson.
He's cold, man.
Oh, boy.
He'll be a lottery pick.
And the one thing that I felt we were all saying, I know I was, throughout the offseason for Oklahoma, is that if they were going to be competitive in basketball in the year of our Lord 2025, and I guess it's still technically 2024, but conference play will kick off in 2025. If they were going to be competitive, they needed Jeremiah Fears to live up to the superstar billing. And he has been nothing short of that. 30 points last night. A clean 30-piece on the number 24 team in the country. So we have a lot to unpack here on Locked In and on the Rush as well. Travis Davidson is going to join me for the Rush today. Both Ted and Tyler are off. So it'll be me and Travis with you on the Rush all the way up until 6 p.m. And as we dive into the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line for portal purposes, a question that I'm seeing a lot of is, what about the tight end from Nebraska, Nate Borkacher, who was in Oklahoma earlier this week for an official visit? Right now, as I understand it, folks on the OU side feel good about where they stand. That said, Texas A&M is also in the picture for Nate Borkacher. So I feel pretty confident in saying that he's going to be either a Sooner or an Aggie. I would lean OU right now just based on what I've heard from the Oklahoma side. But that's one that we shouldn't need to wait much longer for if you're ready for a resolution in that recruitment. And the Sooners do need a tight end. They'd love to have 2 tight ends. The problem is there aren't that many tight ends in the portal that are worth anything right now, Grayson. Borkacher's one of those guys. Oklahoma would love to have him, as I said. But the Sooners will also be keeping an eye out, for tight ends that hit the portal in the coming days, but that are not yet in the portal. You can connect the dots accordingly as you will. But the Sooners are actively monitoring the portal just in case there is a tight end or two of interest that decides to transfer in the immediate future.
Let me ask you this, Parker.
Yes.
This question came up during my time with Steely.
Okay.
So if Oklahoma presumably dropped a bag on John Mateer, how does that affect the spending on these other targets going forward with the rest of the transfer cycle?
It's a great question. There's a lot of money tied up in the John Mateer deal.
As you would guess.
Everybody kind of understands that. He was the most coveted man in college football the second he hit the transfer portal. And he was always going to Oklahoma. But he was on the phone with Bill Belichick yesterday. That happened. I mean, Bill Belichick has been at Carolina for, all of 5 days?
Pretty much.
Something like that. Hadn't been all that long. And he's on the phone with John Mateer trying to get him to North Carolina. Miami was throwing insane money at the kid. But in the end, he chose to rejoin his former offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, and circle back around. I really love the way he announced it because all he did was post a picture from June 12th, 2020, standing in front of the Switzer Center.
I saw that.
He played the long game. Well done, sir. But this, to me, is maybe kind of the biggest concern I have. Is what does Oklahoma have left to spend in the transfer portal? And I don't know the exact number, and I don't know that anyone would know the exact number that Oklahoma has left to spend, but retention has been expensive for the Sooners so far because they have some very high-end football players on the roster that they had to keep around. Deion Burks falls in this category. Dominic Williams falls in this category. Jacob Sexton. And I know he was hurt on the tail end of the season, but he's a guy that NFL scouts think very, very highly of. He's a guy you're going to have to pay to keep around.
Does Eli Bowen fall into that category?
Both of the Bowens absolutely fall into that category, as does Robert Spears-Jennings, as certainly does Jaden Jackson, and you can go on down the list. Oklahoma has some very talented football players on this roster, and that's great, but that also means you have to pay them commensurate with their market value in order to make sure that they stay with you instead of hitting the transfer portal and going to get paid somewhere else. That's just the nature of the beast these days in college football. And so I think what you've seen from Oklahoma in terms of who they're pursuing at wide receiver in particular would lead you to believe that they're not blank checking it across the board and don't have the capacity to blank check it. And that's fine. There are very few schools in the country that do have the capacity to blank check it across the board in the transfer portal. Maybe you can blank check it at a position or two, but Oklahoma did what they had to do. They went and spent a bunch of money to acquire John Mateer because you had to get the quarterback situation right. That's where it all starts. You can't have inadequate quarterback play in the SEC and expect to stay afloat. So that was pivotal for Oklahoma. They pulled it off. They got the guy they had to get. And now you trust, I think, that especially with those offensive skill positions, there will be guys willing to come to Oklahoma at a discount price to play football with a quarterback of John Mateer's caliber. I'll give you a perfect example. Jaron Bradley. Oklahoma's NIL offer to Jaron Bradley is not the highest that he has. It hasn't been the highest that he has. But based on his previous relationship with Emmett Jones, who coached him to a career year back in 2022 when he was at Texas Tech, based on the relationship with Emmett and based on the presence of John Mateer, there's been a confidence from the Oklahoma side that we're going to get this thing done with Jaron Bradley. Now, I'm less sure of that than I was 48 hours ago. Isaiah Satania, I think he's very close to locking in with Oklahoma. That's one that I am anticipating. Who that fourth receiver is in the class, and as we discussed yesterday, Oklahoma's only going to take 4. I would still say Jaron Bradley if you put a gun to my head over it, but that feels like much less of a sure thing at this point because there are other schools in the mix with Bradley that are willing to make him a little bit richer than Oklahoma. So if you look across the board for Oklahoma and what they need, they've made key additions at the position groups where they had to have dudes and have them quickly. Offensive line, certainly with the additions of Beklenko and Derek Simmons. We talked about quarterback, and you got a couple good FCS receivers that are capable of leveling up in Gibson and Lewis. They were highly coveted by Power 4 schools. You got those two. You'd like to have 2 more. You need a tight end or 2. You flip over to the defensive side of the ball, you still need a defensive tackle. You still need a cornerback. You might like to have a linebacker. Oklahoma right now is in the mix for a Wisconsin transfer on the defensive line in James Thompson, who's a pretty solid defensive tackle. They'd love to add him to the fold. They hosted a transfer edge rusher from Idaho State last night in Logan George. That visit went pretty well. There's a thought that maybe he doesn't take any more subsequent visits, which that's always what you angle for. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I think Oklahoma's in a position right now where they're in line to get the guys that they need to get at the positions they need to get them, and they shouldn't have to write a huge check at this point unless something unforeseen happens, which absolutely could happen and does happen in this day and age. It happened last year with Caden Green. Beginning of December last year, we were saying, hey, you know what? You're losing 4 or 5 starters, but the one you got coming back on the offensive line, Caden Green, boy, he's a monster. You know you can count on that dude being around. He's also a Sooner through and through.
Can we play?
And then out of the blue, transfer portal.
Can we play a funny yet very sick game real fast? Who has the potential? The text line is going to hate me for this.
Oh, no.
Who has the potential to hypothetically be this year's Caden
No,
Green?
no, I refuse to answer that question.
You brought it up.
I refuse to answer that question.
You brought it up, Parker.
Listen, there are so many people out there that want the that try to bait me into answering questions like that. I'm just not going to do it. It's a disservice to the player. Shoot, over at OUinsider.com, I let my members bully me into reporting something like this a week ago. They said, "Oh, so you expect a couple of freshmen to hit the transfer portal? Who are they? Tell us the names." And I'm like, I don't say the names until they get in the transfer portal. And they just start piling on and piling on and piling on. And finally, you know what? I'm tired of it. I'll say the names. Eugene Brooks and Nigel Smith. There. And then, of course, I wind up with egg on my face because B.J. Brooks does hit the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. However, things do change with the whole Nigel Smith intel wave. And lo and behold, he's not going anywhere. And so that's why I refrain from saying names, because you're going to find out eventually. I mean, whether it's a guy hitting the transfer portal or a guy getting paid a big chunk or not getting paid a big chunk of change and choosing to go take a bag somewhere else, you're going to find out eventually. And if I disclose all of what I'm hearing and then for whatever reason things change or something falls through or there's a shift in the sands, then, a player has his name dragged into a situation where he just didn't need to be involved nominally in all of it. So,
Tattoo Baker. Grayson, back to the toilet. Don't wish that upon me.
So what did you have an allergic reaction to? Have we figured this out?
I don't know, because there was a lot of ingredients in the food that I made. I think it may have also been that I swallowed something too fast and just had a bad acid reflux reaction and ended up with a heartburn that lasted 4 hours. Whatever it was, it put me on my ass for the rest of the day.
Well, I'm glad you made it through. Hurt, not injured, as they say.
Hurt, not injured. Come on now.
There we go. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. We're going to hit a quick break. We will come back to it, and we will come back here on the Ref. This is Locked In. Parker Thune, Grayson Singleton with you. Don't go anywhere.
Orange Down Apple Pie liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the umps because Spike was safe, Horns Down Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Horns Down celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
Utah and Arkansas, plus 7 other of the nation's top teams. This event cannot be missed, and tickets are on sale now. Visit SproutsCollegiateQuad.com to experience all the gymnastics action.
It's the end of the year and Christmas time out here in the country, and it couldn't get any better to get more for your money than right now. At Seth Wadley Chevy GMC, we understand you're looking for a good deal. That's why during the Red Tag Sales event at Seth Wadley Chevy GMC, we have new Chevys and GMC 1500 4x4 crew cab trucks with 10 grand off. That's 10 grand off with many to choose from. But that's the simple part. At Seth Wadley Chevy GMC in Pauls Valley, our goal is for complete satisfaction during and after the sale. And if you have any problems, just ask for me, Brad Thompson, managing partner, to help you with any questions you might have. And here's the real value that Seth always backs up, with over $21 million and counting on a promise. Tell him, Seth.
That's my promise of oil changes and engines for life on new or used gas or diesel at no additional cost to you.
Experience the difference for less in the country at Seth Wadley Chevy Buick GMC, I-35 exit 72 Pauls Valley, or click SethWadleyGMC.com.
GMC, we are professional grade.
Are you tired of overpaying for insurance? Make the switch today and put more money back in your pocket. Right Way Insurance offers unbeatable rates and exclusive discounts. Don't settle for high premiums. Contact Right Way Insurance at 405-607-6014 and start saving on the coverage you need. Affordable protection is just a phone call away with Right Way Insurance. That's Right Way Insurance, your trusted partner at 405-607-6014.
'Tis the season to eat, drink, and be merry at Coach's Corner in Norman. Take a break from the holiday hustle and join them for Soul Food Sunday. Then stay and watch every snap with the NFL Sunday Ticket and enjoy the coldest beer this side of the North Pole. Planning on a holiday party? Coach's Corner has you covered for Christmas and New Year's. Plus, mark your calendars for December 22nd at 3 p.m. They're hosting a bicycle giveaway just in time for the holidays. Find us at Lindsay and Barry in Norman, Coach's Corner, where every day is game day and every holiday is a celebration.
It's that time of the year again, and our guys just wanted to take some time to wish you the best going into the holiday season.
What's up, guys? It's The Rush, Tyler and Teddy. We want to wish you guys a happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Nobody in this market has better listeners than us.
You guys are the best. Merry Christmas. Let's go get this bowl. Duh.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays, Ref Army. Keep up with the Sooners everywhere you go this holiday season with the KREF app, the home of Sooner fans.
The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Hi, everyone. It's TJ Perry here from the T-Row in the Morning Show for my friends over at Joe's Wines and Spirits. The great staff at Joe's Place would like to thank their loyal customers and wish everyone a happy holiday. And speaking of the holidays, whether you need great gift ideas or you're hosting a holiday party, Joe's Wines is there to help with their great selection and, most of all, great prices. So do what I do. Head over to Joe's Wines and Spirits, 1330 East Alameda Street, right here in Norman, or visit their Facebook page for all their monthly specials. Happy holidays from Joe's Wines and Spirits.
When the game is on the line, you need a team that you can count on. When injuries occur, you can count on the one team that knows sports medicine. Norman Regional's Ortho Central is your premier team of orthopedic specialists. With 5 highly trained orthopedic surgeons, 3 fellowship-trained sports medicine physicians, and locations in Norman, Newcastle, and Midwest City, we'll work hard to get you back in the game. Ortho Central, #1 in sports medicine and orthopedic care. Call 405-360-6764 and schedule an appointment today.
They are listening across the globe. In the Netherlands, in Australia. They are listening across the nation. In Santa Barbara, California, Blackstone, Virginia, Spanish Fork, Utah, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Middletown, Rhode Island, Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. They are listening across the great state of Oklahoma from places like Poto, Oklahoma, Proctor, Oklahoma, Ramona, Oklahoma, Tipton, Oklahoma, Jennings, Oklahoma, and Macomb, Oklahoma. But I'm giving our Small Town of the Day award to Loyal, Oklahoma. Thank you for being loyal to KREF. The Ref Army Locator brought to you by Horns Down Apple Pie. As I said yesterday, I have not had the privilege of taste testing Horns Down Apple Pie because I don't drink, but both Tyler and Grayson have vouched for its veracity.
That's a good word. That's a good way to describe it. By the way, speaking of that, did you ever look back at the text line from the last segment of Steelian?
No, what were you guys talking about? Drake and I were chatting it up out in the conference room, and I did not hear what you guys were discussing at the time.
Well, first of all, he did tell me the closed out of bun story.
Yes, okay, good. I'm glad you got to hear that one.
He did tell me that one. It was a lot of first beer stories and how people are making fun of me for not being a beer drinker. So if you go back into the text line, you can probably get filled in on a lot of things from that last segment. Because I told you before our show, I told you if you went back and looked at the text line, you'd be like, what the hell are they talking about?
So you don't drink beer?
I do not drink beer.
Okay.
I do not like beer.
You're just a liquor guy?
I am.
Okay. I got you. The text line is having an episode of schizophrenia on me. It's all over the place. It's either the text line or the computer that's losing its mind. But we're going to get back there as soon as I get this squared away. 405-651-3439. Gunny of Stutzman Army does confirm Horns Down is delicious. It's got the Gunny stamp of approval.
I think that's
five bongs from Gunny.
I think that's a pretty good stamp of approval to have. Kyle and Broken Bow.
Okay.
Parker, have you heard anything on the Alley and West Virginia talks?
I have not heard anything new on that in the last couple of days. That has just kind of plateaued. West Virginia has not hired a defensive coordinator as of yet, which is kind of surprising to me because you would have expected that with Rich Rod being on the job for, a week now, that he would have moved quickly to make that hire. I don't know what that means as far as Zach Alley's candidacy for the job, whether that makes it more likely or less likely or what have you. But I do know that Zach Alley was offered the job at West Virginia.
Now, has he turned it down yet? Or
I do not know whether he has given West Virginia any sort of conclusive word as to what he intends to do. But obviously, Grayson, if you're Zach Alley, well, more specifically, if you're Zach Alley's agent, you're milking this for all it's worth.
Of course you are. You're going to play this thing up as much as you possibly can to get Zach Alley either that big payday at West Virginia or a big raise here at Oklahoma. It's one of the two. Do you believe, because you're the insider, do you believe that there's a chance he leaves for that job?
This is, and we had this discussion, I think, on Monday. Here's what I would say about Zach Alley and the situation at West Virginia versus the situation at Oklahoma. From a personnel standpoint, you're objectively in a much better situation at Oklahoma. The defensive talent that you have on the roster that is at your disposal as a defensive coordinator, which you would rather be coordinating a defense with studs than scrubs, right? I don't know what West Virginia's depth chart is projected to look like. I don't cover West Virginia football. They were not a great defensive team this past year. I would not imagine that they have a ton of returning talent. Maybe they might have returning production. I don't know how much of it is returning talent next year. So again, from a talent standpoint, from the standpoint of just having dudes, Oklahoma is far better off than West Virginia in that department. And so for Zach Alley, that has to come into play as well. That's a factor in the equation. But, again, if we're just looking at this objectively through the lens of reality, there is much more job security for Zach Alley at West Virginia than there is at Oklahoma. And that's not because Zach Alley hasn't done a great job at Oklahoma. I think he has. I think he did a phenomenal job in year one. But that entire staff's coaching for their jobs in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We know that. We've discussed this. And if Brent Venables gets fired, his whole staff is going too, because that's how it works, Grayson.
Yeah.
That's how it works. You fire a head coach, you're cleaning house. Whoever you hire, you're letting him make the decisions on his way in.
Do you think also that the fact that Brent Venables is such a highly regarded defensive head coach, Zach Alley would maybe want to get away from him, kind of like the Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy kind of thing that they had going with Kansas City? You think he might want to try to build something up with his own fingerprints?
That's a double-edged sword, right? Because
True.
It can go one way or the other. We saw this with Eric Bieniemy because we all were thinking, why on earth can't Eric Bieniemy land a head coaching job?
Uh-huh.
What do these NFL front offices see that we can't see? Come to find out, it was Andy Reid that was stirring the proverbial drink in Kansas City, not Eric Bieniemy.
Right.
In the 2 years he's been away from Kansas City, his career has gone down the tubes. So, how good is Zach Alley at his job versus how much of his success is due to Brent Venables' influence and the personnel that Brent Venables has surrounded him with at Oklahoma? I don't know the answer. We don't have a complete frame of reference. I will say, Alley's defenses at Jacksonville State were pretty solid. So I would be inclined to believe that's a guy that has the chops as a defensive play caller to have success to some extent wherever he goes. And I think with just the way that he is, everything that he presents, everything that is said about him by people close to him, I think he's got the potential to be one of the best defensive coordinators in the collegiate game within a few years. He's definitely a guy that's on the fast track to being a head coach. And so for Zach Alley, and this is, again, something I don't know, does he aspire to be a head coach? Is he comfortable just being a defensive coordinator in the long term, like Brent Venables was? Brent Venables coached for 30 years before taking the head coaching job at Oklahoma, which was his first and is his first.
Yep.
Does Zach Alley want to be a head coach by his mid-30s? Because that's attainable right now if he wants it. But that's not what everybody wants.
And it becomes more attainable if he fixes the defensive situation at West Virginia, too. Because a lot of the coaching searches, it's been this way, it is this way, it will continue to be this way. A lot of the coaching searches are dictated by who's trending well and who's not trending well within the media spaces. And right now, whenever you think of Oklahoma's defense, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, but whenever you think of Oklahoma's defense, you think of Brent Venables. You don't really think of, from a national perspective, there are very few people who point out Zach Alley's impact on all of this.
Sure.
So if he says, like you potentially threw out, if he potentially wants to be a head coach by the end of his mid-30s, one could argue that it would behoove him to maybe take a job where if the defense performs well, who's the first name we go to? Zach Alley, not the head coach. It would make a lot of sense.
Would you argue that?
I would. Now, if I was Zach Alley, would I make the move to West Virginia? The one thing that would lean me in that direction is what you laid out at the beginning of the conversation. This entire staff is coaching for its job. The defense could be top 50 in the country next year. But if the offense looks as incompetent as it did this year, everybody's out of there, including Zach Alley. So that would be the one thing, because you're right, from a personnel standpoint, from an NIL standpoint, from a visibility standpoint in college football, you are at a much better position here at Oklahoma than you are at West Virginia. That's unarguable. But in terms of what kind of a springboard could that be if you turn around West Virginia's defense, plus you've got a little bit more job security with Rich Rodriguez coming in his first year, that would make me think about it. Absolutely.
We have a couple of super chats on the YouTube stream.
Okay.
Shout out to Drake Dyken for noticing. I did not have the stream in front of me. So, I do now. Matthew Weiser threw us $2 and asked, why on earth are we not pursuing Colton Boomer? Former UCF kicker Colton Boomer. Well, I'll tell you, there's a kid that's going to be on campus at Oklahoma by the end of the day today that was the Conference USA Special Teams Player of the Year. That's Lucas Carnero, who was just kicking for Western Kentucky last night in their game. So that is the portal kicker that Oklahoma has put a red eye on. That's the guy that they're pursuing. That's a superior option to Colton Boomer. I know everybody loves the name. It's easy to get enamored with the name. I understand it. Lucas Carnero, if you can land him, that's the guy you go get. Alan M. gave us $10. He said, we are ahead of the game with the latest hires we have made in the front office. We will keep the producers, let the other guys portal. We have almost weeded through the crap. Tebow left us. No depth. Look, Alan, I don't know if it fits the ideal narrative or not, but you have weeded through what Lincoln Riley left you. Next season, there will not be a single scholarship football player on the roster that played it down under Lincoln Riley. They're all gone or graduating. As it stands right now, the only guys that are going to participate in the bowl game that played under Riley, and I guess Stutzman and Bowman haven't officially declared their intentions to play or not play in the bowl game either way. I don't expect either of them to play. As of right now, there are only two players that are going to play in the bowl game that played a down of football under Lincoln Riley. That's Ethan Downs and Woody Washington. Both those guys are graduating. That's it. So guess what? As of 2025, this is officially Brent Venables' team and Brent Venables' program. Every single one of these guys is a guy that was handpicked by Brent Venables and his staff. So, if that right there might be even more reason that the 2025 season is so pivotal for BV and his staff, because there are no excuses anymore as far as the personnel, as far as the lack of depth. No, all these guys that are on the roster are here because you chose them. For the first time, it is 100% your team.
3-star Lost City Sooner. So does that mean Branch is not coming to OU?
I would not count on it. Les says, big hat tip to Parker for his coverage of the Mateer saga. While others in the media were flailing with talk of Arbuckle and Mateer to Miami or Washington State, Parker had the most accurate takes on the situation. I appreciate that, Les, and there were a lot of people covering the saga, a lot of people that did good work covering the saga, but it was pretty straightforward. If John Mateer was leaving Washington State, he was going to Oklahoma. It was always that simple, and so when he did decide to get in the portal, let's put it this way, no one should have been shocked when this all turned out the way it did within 48 hours. Hits the portal on Monday, visits Oklahoma on Tuesday, commits by Wednesday. It was always going to be a very straightforward, very drama-free process for a guy that has never sought out the spotlight either. He has not embraced the drama of the portal process and certainly not embraced the drama that would have come with being the number one available player in the transfer portal. Crap Stealer says, hey, Parker, does it worry you that it had to come down to Baker's save in the day? You and Drum said the staff would have had to absolutely drop the ball if they weren't able to land Mateer while he was on campus. How close was he on visiting North Carolina? As I understand it, Crap Stealer, it was not that close. North Carolina called. Yes, Miami called. Both of those programs were making promises to John Mateer. But he was already in Norman. He was already on campus. He already had the NIL contract in front of him, and it had been vetted by his people. He was there with his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle. I understand that Belichick tried to get in on the action. I understand that Mario Cristobal tried his best, which, by the way, Brent Venables has owned Mario Cristobal on the recruiting trail these last few years. But we can unpack that more at a later date. As I understand it, it was never that close. And it's nice to have Baker involved, certainly. I don't think it was a case of Baker himself saved the day. You know, Baker might have put the final nail in the coffin, but I would not categorize it or characterize it as Baker saving the day. John Mateer was always going to Oklahoma as soon as he was in the transfer portal. All right, we're overdue for a quick break. Let's hit one. We'll come back. We'll wrap up Locked In with one final segment. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Stay here.
Orange Down Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the Yums because Spike was safe, Horns Down Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Horns Down celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
Utah and Arkansas, plus 7 other of the nation's top teams. This event cannot be missed, and tickets are on sale now. Visit SproutsCollegiateQuad.com to experience all the gymnastics action.
It was the week before Christmas. I got shopping to do. I'll be driving all over the state before I'm through. I got to get presents and lights for the tree. How will I do it? I don't know. You see, I don't want to take the Ford truck that I got because the bumpers are gone, the transmission's shot, the fenders are rusted, the engine runs hot. Go shopping in this thing? I think not. So it looks like I'm stuck down on my luck. What I really want most is a new Chevy truck. I'd go with a red one. No, make it blue. I can see it right now, all shiny and new. Hey, wait, that's a real one out there on the lawn. I bet Santa left it and had to move on. There's a note on the windshield. What does it say? It says, from Knippelmeyer Chevrolet. You can call them on the phone for free, 485-3333. Go on out and see them. They'll treat you right. Oh, and Merry Christmas to all a good night. They do business a better way out there in Blanchard, USA at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet.
Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Are you looking for that gift for the biggest OU or golf fan in your life? The Pro Shop at Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club is your place to go this holiday season. With brands such as Lululemon, Red & West, Travis Matthews, Peter Millar, Johnny O, and so much more. Maybe you need a hat or a belt or a polo or a sweatshirt. You can find it all at the Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club. And it's not just for men. They have apparel for youth and women. So when you want the best OU apparel you can't find anywhere else, the place to go is the Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club.
Hey Sooners, I'm OU alum and Board Street Ventures founder James Spann. The Sooners season is underway, which means it's time for the Boyd Street Ventures Under the Radar Player of the Game. It's time for you to consider investing in BSV. Our portfolio has 16 innovative, under-the-radar, Oklahoma-connected companies. If you want in, the sooner the better, as our fund closes December 31st. Check out our portfolio at BoydStreetVentures.com. Boyd Street Ventures, under the radar, above the crowd.
How about this? We're hanging out with the winningest coach in OU football history, Bob Stoops, Mondays on the T-Row in the Morning Show. It's the Stoops Review with the HBC on the T-Row Show, Mondays from 7:45 to 8:30 with limited commercial interruption. Every Monday, we'll be looking back at Saturday's OU game with a guy who knows what he's looking at. Bob Stoops, the Visor, the HBC on our show every Monday. Check it out.
Wanting to make a big splash with your holiday gift giving this year? Give your family a Christmas to remember with a pool from Signature Custom Pools. Contact the experts to help you design the perfect escape for your family. Signature Custom Pools offers the highest level of customer service to create your retreat guaranteed to provide memories of a lifetime. Call them for a free consultation today at 405-898-9098 or visit them online at signaturecustompools.com to get the signature touch.
Insurance companies aren't in the business of saving you money, they're in the business of taking your money. Hi, this is Will Gosney with Yala Gosney Attorneys at Law. Have you ever had an insurance claim and thought, wow, I really am in good hands, or these folks truly are treating me like a neighbor? Well, that's where we can help. We'll deal with the stress, we'll get you back to your normal life. So save our number in your phone, and if you're ever hurt in a wreck, call or text us at 405-800-8080. It's 405-800-8080.
For over 80 years, Primrose Funeral Service has been providing comfort and guidance during difficult times. Pre-planning with Primrose can help make things a little easier for families. Not only can you pre-plan a funeral, but you can pre-plan your sunset cemetery arrangements, which removes the difficulty of planning for a loss at the same time loved ones are experiencing one. Contact Primrose Funeral Service at 405-321-6000 or visit them online at primrosefuneralservice.com.
Here's a random question to kick off this final segment of Locked In. And I was only thinking about this earlier today because I saw Jake Dickert's introductory press conference as the head coach at Wake Forest. Of course, Dickert left Washington State for Wake Forest yesterday. What is the most historically irrelevant Power 4 football program? Because there are three candidates that immediately come to mind for me. And one that would have been in the conversation until this year, and that's Indiana.
Yeah.
But three candidates come to mind for me. Wake Forest is one, certainly. Northwestern is another. And Virginia is number three.
Yep.
Both, like all three of those programs, like I forget 90% of the time I am not even cognizant of the reality that they exist in the Power 4 landscape in the sport of football.
Does Duke fall into this category?
No, because Duke's had some good years.
They
like
have.
for a long time,
Yeah,
they were
have.
really, really irrelevant. David Cutcliffe got it cooking at Duke.
Yeah, he did.
And I think, like, for instance, with what Duke just paid to Darian Mensah, I think they're serious about competing in football moving forward.
Well, now
I don't think they're going to be irrelevant. Well, but they have been, though. Like,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They've been competitive. I think they're serious about trying to level this thing up. Speaking of leveling up, nobody is more serious about leveling up right now in the transfer portal than Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Cody Campbell, you want to talk about blank checking everything. Cody Campbell's buying Texas Tech a brand new team. And what's hilarious is they're very open about the fact that that's what they're doing, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Smoke them if you got them. You got the money, go ahead and spend it. And Texas Tech got money. Cody Campbell got money. The YouTube comments are a war zone right now. I'm going to pin this on you, Grayson. I'm going to say this is your fault.
Oh, boy.
A fella named Tommy Bailey hit the comment section to say, the pompous attitudes of these clowns at KREF is maddening. And their sarcastic, smug reaction to it is one of the reasons they got thrown off the air and are now a failed radio station. How does it feel to work for a failed radio station, Grayson?
You know, so far, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, me too.
You know, sometimes
based on the number of texts that have flown in this hour alone on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, I'm pretty confident we're not running a failed operation here.
Hey, man, if you think...
Thanks for listening, though, Tommy.
If you think we're failing, number one, thanks for contributing.
Yeah, in the words of the great Coach Stoops, even the haters make you money.
Stephen A. just got paid $20 million a year.
Did he really?
He's about to get paid $25 million a year at ESPN. You think that's off the backs of people that like him?
I have a very love-hate relationship with Stephen A. Smith.
Doesn't everybody?
I feel like some people just straight up hate him.
Yes.
He has a lot of true hate. I am not a true hater of Stephen A. Smith. I respect what he does in the same way that I respect what Colin Cowherd does. They are great at engagement farming in an intelligent way.
Yes.
Engagement farming is engagement farming. Any way you slice it. But those guys will say stuff with their chest and give you facts and back it up with reason. They're not just going to throw takes out there and let them burn down at the hands of the masses.
And they've had some pretty bad takes, too.
They have. Haven't we all? I mean,
yeah.
You stay in this business long enough, you're going to have some bad takes.
Yes, you will.
Can't get away from it. Let's see what we have on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Lloyd says, anybody else feel like lighting up a cigarette after Mateer signed? Well, you'll get no argument from Gunny on that one, Lloyd. I'll tell you that much. Jeff from OKC says, I asked this a few weeks ago, but after yesterday, what are you looking forward to more, bowl game or spring game? What do you think, Grayson?
Spring game. Here's why bowl season has lost its luster for me. Number one, most of the guys, unless you're in a prestigious bowl or playing for a championship, most of the guys you want to see are off to the NFL, so they've entered the draft. And the transfer portal has changed everything. The bowl game isn't even an incentive. It isn't even any kind of way indicative of what the team was up until that season, up until that point. They're one-offs now. For the most part.
I'm very surprised Washington State hasn't pulled out of their bowl matchup yet.
I'm shocked, too.
What do they have left, man?
What did they lose? Offensive coordinator, head coach, left tackle, quarterback, wide receiver.
Running back.
Top
cornerback, Ethan O'Connor.
Yeah, Ethan O'Connor, yeah. What do they have to play for? They're going to go out there, get mollywopped, and that's going to be the last taste in everybody's mouth, even though they had a pretty good season. And that's why they got their whole roster and coaching staff purged.
I am looking forward to OU's bowl game. I am looking forward to seeing what Michael Hawkins and some of those speed receivers can do against Navy, because their weakness is going to be in the secondary.
Correct.
And Teddy and I talked about this at length yesterday. I mean, you got to play to your matchups and where your advantages lie. And for Oklahoma, that's going to be in those matchups between the OU receivers and the Navy defensive backs. Solo threw us $2 on the Super Chat via YouTube, said, showing Parker some appreciation, job well done. Thank you, Solo. Very first contribution from a listener named Troy, who said, appreciate all the broadcasters and staff that made this station top tier, or make this station top tier. Special thanks to Parker and Grayson for being awesome young bloods. Boomer. He left out the R in your name. So he
just called me Gayson?
He wrote it as Gayson, yes. But we all know what he meant. Thank you, Troy, for the $5 contribution. We appreciate you.
I guess.
Here's an interesting question, interesting discussion to close out the show here. Because Oklahoma's most recent portal addition this morning was offensive tackle Derek Simmons from Western Carolina. I say offensive tackle, that's primarily what he is. He's got plenty of collegiate experience playing both tackle and guard. Started out his collegiate career at Tusculum, transferred to Abilene Christian, then transferred to Western Carolina, and now will close out his collegiate career at Oklahoma. He has almost 1,000 career pass protection snaps, Grayson, and has allowed
one sack.
So, you add him. You add Luke Baklenko. What does this offensive line look like week 1 of next season, who are your 5 starters?
Give me the Simmons guy, for sure.
Okay. Where are you putting him?
You said he's a tackle, right?
Yes. He has played both left and right tackle quite a bit.
I'm going to go right tackle.
Okay. I agree with you on that.
I'm going to have Sexton at left.
Boom.
This is where this gets hard.
Those guard spots, man.
Yeah. Troy Everett's back at center, right? Is that the
You
belief?
would presume so, yes.
Okay.
He is the only guy on this roster that will have any experience playing center.
So you would have Troy Everett at center. Ozida got better as the season went along, so I think he's in the early, at least if you want to say the first depth chart for spring practice, you would say Ozida is probably your left guard.
Okay.
And Weewoo your right guard.
5 for 5, we're in lockstep.
Let's go.
I agree all the way with you. The one thing that's going to be interesting to me is, can Eddie Pierre-Louis unseat one of those guards? Because I think, and I was actually having this discussion with Drake right before we went on the air at the top of the 2 o'clock hour. I think your highest ceiling pair of guards is Ozida and Pierre-Louis. But
yes.
Weewoo just has so much experience. And at no point in 2024 was he the problem for that offensive line. Was he elite? No. But he was consistent. He was stable. He was not the liability. So a guy like Bill Bedenbaugh in particular, who values that type of thing, values having that experience factor, that stability factor, he's probably going to lean in the direction of playing a guy like Fabechi Weewoo as opposed to a youngster like Eddie Pierre-Louis. But the big question in my mind is, when does EPL make it undeniable?
Yep.
Because I think that day's coming. And it's probably coming before the end of the 2025 season. But that's going to come at somebody's expense. Whose expense? Because he can play center. He can play guard. Probably too short to play tackle, even though he's done it in the past. But any of those 3 interior spots feels like prime territory for Eddie Pierre-Louis to make his move, if you will, in 2025. And then obviously you got great depth. You've got guys that can play multiple positions. Jake Taylor to me is your 6th man. And the big wild card is Beklenko. Because as I mentioned earlier in the week, you don't have to turn Luke Beklenko into a serviceable player. He is that. Can you turn him into a good, even great player? That's the challenge ahead for Bill Bedenbaugh. But yeah, as I would project it right now, Sexton at left tackle, Ozida at left guard, Everett at center, Fabechi Weewoo at right guard, and then I really, really like Derek Simmons, man, for that right tackle spot.
And by the way, in those 5 projected starters, only 1 came from the portal. You can work with that kind of continuity year over year. Now, again, you got to cross your fingers that those dudes don't get hurt, and you can have that continuity working all throughout the offseason going into the regular year. But I think you're off to a good start if indeed that's what the coaching staff is going in thinking that's what their starting 5 can be.
A couple closing texts here. A 405 listener says, Parker, if you're doing the rush with Teddy next hour, I sure hope your intro cut has, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And Dusty saying, yum, yum, gimme some. Trust me, there will be multiple usages of the yum, yum, gimme some snippet on this fine Thursday. Can promise you that. That will be a staple here moving forward. Teddy is not doing the rush today. I am doing the rush. Teddy is not. Travis Davidson is going to be in his seat. Teddy and Tyler are both out. This is the nature of the Christmas season, folks. We are cobbling it together, and we'll continue to. Alex from Manford points out Dabo just got a transfer edge from Purdue. Look at that. Dabo Sweeney's using the
transfer portal.
And he also adds, listen, and this is a good point from Alex, listen, we can give Dabo crap about all his beliefs and mindset about the portal, but if he starts dipping into the portal and grabbing some dudes, then everyone better watch out because he's a hell of a coach.
Real quickly, what did you think about J.J. Hester going to Kentucky?
That's about what I expected.
Okay.
Knew he was going to stay in the SEC, figured it would be one of those mid to low tier SEC programs. Kentucky and J.J. Hester seem like a good match for one another.
And Kentucky just lost its best receiver, too, to LSU.
Yes, Barryon Brown. That's correct. Drew from Flower Mound, last text. Drew from Flower Mound asked, who are we going for at cornerback? Feel like we need one more body. Continue to keep an eye on Ethan O'Connor, the Washington State transfer. I know OU still feels pretty solid about their chances there. All right, that's a wrap for Locked In. Grayson, always fun hanging with you. Drake Dykin and Travis Davidson are going to tag team it alongside me on The Rush. Coming up here on The Ref, you're